How do we make benefits a competitive advantage in hiring and retention? How do we improve affordability for employees without blowing up our own budget?
Mm.
And what does our data tell us about future costs and future risks? As well as what can we implement from a technological standpoint to achieve those goals as well?
Hello, I'm John Zimmerman, and welcome to Shelf Confidence, a podcast brought to you by the Pennsylvania Food Merchants Association that focuses on the trends and innovations in the food and beverage industry. Today, we're talking about employee benefits and insurance and how these decisions impact workforce stability, costs, and long-term business confidence across the food and beverage industry. Joining us is Robert Stout, an employee benefits consultant with Gallagher. Gallagher works with employees across a wide range of industries, including food and beverage, helping businesses better understand benefits, manage risk, and navigate an increasingly complex landscape. He's here to share insights into what food and beverage employees should be thinking about right now and how leaders can make more informed decisions without getting lost in the weeds. Welcome to the show, Robert. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, excited to have this conversation. So I know you guys have had some big news this week, so I'm just going to take it right from the top. I'd love to know a little bit about the history of Gallagher now, but I understand you guys transitioned over from Assured Partners this week, so I would love to just hear the whole history and about and also about the transition as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's been very exciting in the four walls in our office. But as you said, this past week we did transition from Assured Partners over to Gallagher with all the logos that you'll be seeing on LinkedIn, all of the branding. So it's now under the Gallagher umbrella, and it's I nothing's really changing aside from just kind of waving a different flag. So it used to be Assured Partners, and now it's Gallagher.
Awesome. Well, as a marketing person, I do appreciate a good rebrand. So good luck with that. I do. Yeah. So yeah. So how did your organization develop expertise working with the food and beverage employers? And what have you learned about those realities of this industry along the way? I'd love to hear your insights on that.
Yeah, sure. So our experience in this space pretty much grew organically. We started working with employers who needed help navigating high turnover, variable hour staffing, and some tight margins. So over time, we just kind of saw those same patterns pop up across the industry, and we were able to implement some solutions around them. Pretty much what we've learned is that the employers within this industry are incredibly resilient. They're constantly balancing labor shortages, rising costs, and compliance rules that weren't necessarily designed for their workplace in mind.
Mm.
So we've come to realize that the best benefit strategies are ones that ultimately acknowledge those realities rather than fighting against them. And I certainly have a handful of clients that are within the food and beverage or just agriculture industry.
Sure.
And one of them, from an agriculture and kind of a cropping standpoint, they're a large mushroom farm down in the Kennett Square area where
Okay.
pretty much every mushroom is going to
Yeah, I
be
was about to say, I think that's where a lot of them come from.
but they had a large workforce where they had full-time employees that were seasonal really, but they worked enough hours picking the mushrooms, and so they were considered full-time employees. The employer didn't really recognize this as a problem until we stepped in and let them know, like, this is going against the grain. You're falling out of compliance with
Mm.
Affordable Care Act type policies. So what we were able to do was implement certain solutions because when they put in the Affordable Care Act, they didn't really have employers like this in mind. So it got to be very tricky, but we were able to tailor some unique solutions to them.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, mushrooms, we're a big producer of that here in Pennsylvania, apples and
Oh,
mushrooms. So yeah, no, coming out of farm show week. I got all the stats. So,
I'm sure
so,
you do.
oh yeah, no, it's been a busy week. So from your vantage point, what makes the food and beverage workforce unique when it comes to all these benefits and expectations?
Yeah, I'd say that the workforce in the food and beverage industry is it's kind of unlike any other, and it's due to a few key reasons. And that's schedules are changing constantly, so the traditional benefits communication doesn't always land with that certain population. Many employees are younger or in their early careers, so affordability and simplicity are more of a concern than the bells and whistles and rich benefit plans that you'll see a lot of employers try to beef up to stay competitive. They've also got multiple job types under one roof. You have hourly workers, tipped workers, seasonal workers, management, corporate, and all of those employee populations have different needs. So it's even tiny things like even payroll deductions can really impact retention, and
Yeah.
that's certainly some unique characteristics of the food and beverage industry.
That's interesting. So for the uninitiated, I'd love to hear you explain what you do in like a sentence. Like if you could explain it to the uninitiated, how would you describe your job in like one sentence?
In its simplest form, we or I partner with employers to stretch their healthcare dollars as far as possible. That comes with a very complex subset of things
I'm sure.
under that one sentence, but at its core, we just really try to partner with our employers to meet them where they're at, set a 3 to 5 goal strategy, and help them obtain that through the lens of employee benefits.
Awesome. No, I think that's pretty succinct. So I guess what got you into this industry in the first place? I'm curious.
It's Trust me, when I was going through high school and college, I wasn't telling everyone I'm definitely going to be an insurance geek or an employee benefits consultant. But in the back of my head, I knew that that's where I was going to end up. It runs in my family. So one of the unique things about Assured Partners before we were acquired by Gallagher is that Assured Partners would buy up boutique agencies within smaller towns, or like Central PA was very big for that. And my grandfather and my father started Stout Advisors, which was a smaller agency back in 1989.
Hmm.
And then my dad sold that shop to Assured Partners in 2015. And now here we are in 2026, and we're flying the Gallagher flag now.
All right, very cool. So you're an expert in this field and been doing this for a couple generations then.
Yes, yeah. Me and my older brother runs our Lidditz office where I report out of, and it's certainly been a family generational thing for us.
So it's a family operation then. PFMA has a lot of grocery stores and a lot of retailers and stuff that are also family owned and operated. So that's really interesting that you also kind of come from that background. I love to pull that thread a little bit more. How is that work with doing as a family unit? I mean, every company I'm sure has their own challenges with dealing with like family and business at the same time. How do you guys navigate that?
Yeah, it's really not too hard. I thought before joining that it was going to be a little bit more messy, or that I wasn't going to be as happy, but it's really I was so far from the truth. Um, Obviously, I think the only thing that's impacted is when we're gathering on holidays. There's certainly a lot of business talk.
I'm sure.
But outside of that, once you know what your role is, what you're supposed to do, it doesn't really matter who you're reporting to. You just get the job done.
As long as you're not arguing in the boardroom like you would at Thanksgiving dinner, I think you're probably in good shape.
No, we save that for the holidays.
Oh yeah,
Trust
yeah.
me.
So, as does our family. I hear you on that. So, gotta keep it all bottled up for the family to get together. So, obviously you're an expert in this. I'd love to know more about the misconceptions about this. Like, I'm sure everybody out there has ideas on insurance and how that intersects with their own company and industry, but I'm sure there's a ton of misconceptions out there that people kind of take to this, and I'd love it if you could help me kind of talk through some of those.
I'd say the biggest misconception that I hear when I go to meet with a potential client is they'll say the phrase, "Our employees don't care about their benefits." And again, that couldn't be further from the truth. They do care. They just care in a different way than what some employers are used to.
Hmm.
Um, Many hourly workers, they want predictable costs, access to basic care, and support that fits their lifestyle. when employers kind of shift from a really rich benefit plan to relevant benefits, that's when you start to see engagement go a lot higher, and you start getting better reviews from your employees that are truly satisfied with the benefits you're providing, and you really start retaining your talent as well as going out and getting newly acquired talent onto your staff.
That makes sense. Yeah, the bennies definitely help with the retention, I'm sure.
Sure.
I'm just amazed. Like somebody actually thought that their staff didn't care about the benefits. I find that's wild.
It you'll I think they're being a bit facetious when they do
Sure.
say that, but I think a frustration that employers feel is they pay so much money to provide these benefits, and 95% of American
Hmm.
workers, they don't understand their full benefits package. So
That's
therefore,
fair.
they don't utilize it. Um, but the employers, for the most part, are putting a lot of thought and strategy behind what they're paying for to deliver it to you as the employee. So I think sometimes it comes off as the employee doesn't care about the benefits, but they truly do.
No, I totally get it. Yeah, no one's able to repeat back the HR handbook on a whim there. Yeah, that's yeah,
No,
no.
that's
You
and
gotta look
God
it up.
bless them if they
I
are.
know, yeah, I don't have that kind of recall. I can't do it. What's a small change that you've seen employers make that has had an outsized positive impact?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the benefit strategy and when employers are partnering with brokers, they truly tend to think mostly about how is this financially going to impact us? Where do we need to be in 3 to 5 years to make sure that we're hitting all of our marks? But they tend to forget about some of the small things. One of those being it's just making a simple tweak to the communication to your employees regarding your benefits can have huge impacts. So, simple tools like text reminders, QR codes, or short videos, they can dramatically increase the understanding of the benefits and start to reduce those headaches and frustration that HR professionals will get where their employee just saunters into their office and kind of goes through question by question what's going on with their insurance when there can be tools that are really easy to digest and make sure that we properly communicate that to the employee.
No, I love that. Again, as a marketing person, I do love a good short form video. I'm amazed how much I'll skip a blog and just watch the 2 minute explainer video on like how do I fix this thing in a sub menu in my video editing software. You know what I mean? Like there's so many ways to do the explainer videos.
That's I know I call it speed running those long 30
Watch that
minute
two
training
times speed.
videos.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been there. Yep. Showing my peak millennial with that one, I think. But yeah. So
Hey,
yeah, yeah. So at a high level, how should food and beverage operators think about the difference between fully insured and self-funded plans without getting lost in the weeds? So
yeah,
yeah.
I that's a super common question that I get when I'm meeting with potential clients, and I try to frame it in the easiest way possible. I think about that Michael Scott scene in The Office where he's like, "Explain it to me like I'm five." So I did my best to shorten that. So I would say fully insured is like paying your rent. It's predictable, and the insurance carrier takes on all the risk. Self-funding is like owning the building, where you take on more responsibility, but you get more control, transparency, and potential savings. And I think one of the biggest myths between fully insured and self-funding is employers don't typically go from being fully insured to traditionally standalone self-funded. Um, it's much more of a spectrum with some stops in between that. So a lot of the times employers will be in what's called a level funded program, and that's typically your consortiums or your captives. And that's going to really help transition into being fully insured if you ever get to that point. I'd say a large majority of my clients really found that comfortability in the level funded space so that they don't need to inherently take on all of the risk of being self-funded.
Okay. Can you think of it? So obviously, you're the expert on this, obviously. Could you give me a little bit of a scenario where one might be better than the other? I'm just trying to get a better differentiation of like what is the difference? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you'll typically see smaller companies be fully insured. That's just because when you are self-funded, it comes with much more of an administrative burden, but there's certainly a lot of advantages to it. When you are self-funded, it allows us as the brokers to really do our job to our fullest extent because we get insight into your actual claim activity, so we can see what's actually driving your healthcare spend and start to tailor strategies around specific patterns that we might be seeing within the claim activity. But I think it's not only just the size of the company that should really delineate if you are fully insured or self-funded. A lot of it's going to come down to the proficiency of knowledge within your HR department, if you have the bandwidth to take on more administrative burden, and also just having more of an open mind to a new idea. Insurance is scary. It's the second largest line item on every employer's financial balance sheets. And so they don't typically like to make changes that could really impact their bottom line. But if you have a little bit more of a risk tolerance, then yeah, you are going to make that transition and it is going to impact your bottom line. But when we step in to help, it's impacting it in a positive direction.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it can be a little scary. There's a lot of paperwork there. You start seeing the stacks of paperwork line, you're like, oh God, oh no, I got to read all this. So I can relate to that. My eyes start glossing over. I'm trying to learn though. So
No, it's a great question, and the more I think outside of just the decision makers and companies get to understand the differences between fully insured and self-funding, it's going to help go a long way.
kind of taking a step back from that for a second, if you could instantly fix one benefits related headache for every employer in the food and beverage industry, just wave the magic wand, what do you think it would be?
Honestly, if I could reduce the prices of
I
everything,
like where your head's at.
I think that headache would be no, I'd like to say that us as a broker, we try to be like a Tylenol for your headache. It's very complex. In especially at the end of 2025 and going into 2026, we saw record high renewals across the whole country. Healthcare is just inflating to a point in which it's not sustainable for a lot of
Yeah.
employers. And a lot of that has to do with at a government level, are we going to extend ACA tax credit subsidies down to the employers? Is it going to go directly to the consumers of healthcare? Um, I I think if I could wave my wand and fix everything, I would get all of our government to align on on the issue of the ACA tax credit subsidies, and that would help clear a 3 to 5 year path for most employers.
I wish I could give you the magic wand to make that happen, sir. I would in a heartbeat. So, moving on from that a little bit. So beyond health insurance, what are some of the overlooked risks or coverage gaps that food and beverage employers should be paying more attention to?
Yeah, it's as you know, my expertise lies in employee benefits and group health insurance, but I think some areas that deserve a lot more attention. I off the top of my head, a few would be workers' comp coordination, especially in high injury environments.
Mm,
Leave management is a huge one. If you've inconsistent processes, it can create compliance issues. A huge one that we're seeing is just cyber liability,
hmm,
especially within like the food and hospitality, I would say, because they all have point of sale or POS systems that can, if you're not protecting yourself from cyber attacks, you're leaving you and your customers open to potential liability. It's just becoming more and more commonplace that we'll see my coworkers and teammates on the property and casualty side they'll really focus in on cyber liability, um, as well as employment practices and liability insurance or EPLI. So that's coverage, and it helps protect against wage and hour exposure, as well as some of the inequities like kind of ageism in the workplace. Uh, I start to see a lot of that being implemented.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the cyber liability. Last season, we had a couple people come on and talk about that as well, about like how you ensure if all your system crashes and make sure to check all the fine print of how and what you're covering in said crash. But they also,
Yeah,
yeah, sorry.
it's scary. If if you're if you're a 50 life group, so what we would consider a smaller employer, and your whole system crashes, you're losing out on hours or potentially days worth of sales. Your employees can no longer communicate with one another. It's scary how fast the house of cards can fall when there's a cyber attack.
Oh, especially, and there's, I mean, who knows what information they can get access to, bank accounts, whatever, blackmail. I mean, there's all sorts of scary stuff that can come out of that kind of a hack.
Yeah, and especially as it pertains to employee benefits and health insurance, that's protected health information. You don't want
No.
any Joe Schmo out there knowing exactly what's going on with your body, and there's much more of, obviously it's devastating from a financial standpoint when there's a cyber attack like that, but the emotional health is being damaged as well from the employees and just everyone affected by that.
Oh yeah, no, I can't even imagine. Everybody's, you can just see the blood pressure probably going up and people going down. I can only imagine. So I'd love to hear some stories from you. If I could pull one out of you, I'd love to. Like I know you've been in the industry a long time. I'd love to hear a good insurance story if you have one potentially.
Yeah, I think anytime that I bring on a client, it feels unique. It's I've never experienced going to a potential client, hearing them out, going through the whole process of obtaining them as a client, and hearing the same story twice. So I'll go back because it is my favorite example, is the mushroom farm that I was talking about before. They had hundreds of employees who were considered seasonal workers, and therefore when they were providing their insurance to the whole population, the entire employee population, they actually had roughly 375 employees that needed coverage, but let's just call it 300 of them weren't ever going to use the benefits being provided to them. They were actually non-residents at the time and would go back to where they're from to get their health care. So this was becoming a compliance issue with the Affordable Care Act compliance, that certain employees weren't being provided benefits because the employer thought, well, they're not using them whatsoever, and they don't get their health care here in America. But that isn't the case. That's not how the law works whatsoever. And we were able to implement a solution where um, we got them MEC plans so that the employer is staying compliant, and MEC is minimum essential coverage, which was introduced from Obamacare back in, would have been 2011. And
Yeah.
so that challenge was certainly unique, but at the same time, it was giving all of their employees benefits that they never had before, really getting them to shift their mindset into there's care that I can get here, which gives them more time to just have a better life here where they're spending their time. They don't need to go back home as much to seek medical treatment. That's been probably my favorite success story, is getting to talk to those employees as well, and just seeing how much their lives have been enriched and the fact that they're able to spend more time with their family, getting I think this isn't specific to a single client of mine, but across the industry, I think getting people more into the idea of telemedicine has been extremely rewarding as us brokers to watch because and this isn't always the case, but we like to implement solutions for our clients that when their employees are using telemedicine, if they're using it in the correct way that we've introduced it to the employers, you'll see a lot of their pharmacy spend if they're getting it through an online retailer, one of the solutions that we've provided. All of that is not going on to the employer's bottom line when it's coming up for renewal season from the insurance carrier. So we got to see employers who were typically, I would say, spending, let's just call it $2 million on their employees' claims every single year. When we've gotten them to use telemedicine and fill their prescriptions through an online pharmacy, we were able to reduce that total healthcare spend from 2 million down to I would call it 1.2 million. So it's a huge percentage that
Yeah.
we're able to actually help employers out. And I just love seeing that shift into using technology for good.
Yes, that is nice to see.
I've seen too many Black Mirror episodes to see technology be used poorly.
I was
So
going to
I
reference
like
Terminator.
seeing
So yeah, Black Mirror is an excellent, even better example. So great show. Well, cool. No, I appreciate you sharing that story. You know what? I do, as the podcast reviewer, I do love a good story. So that I appreciate that. So you work with both small operators and larger companies. I'd love to know a little bit more about what strategies scale well across the industry, regardless of their sizes.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of this is going to pertain to self-funded or level-funded employers. But some of the things that are always going to work no matter what size the employer is using data to actually guide your decisions. A lot of us brokers like to boast and puff our chests out that we have capabilities that can do this or that, but they're not actually doing anything with that data. They're just
Mm,
presenting it to you saying, oh, this is what we can do. So I think partnering with brokers that use data for actionable insights, drive down to see what problems are causing your employees to drive up their claims. We can drill down specifically into certain diagnostic codes and then predict within 99% accuracy where that code is going to either progress or digress into. And a lot of times, where we use that is if we see that an employee has had cancer, unfortunately, but every time they're going into an office visit, you're seeing a different code pop up. It's typically going to be one number off, but we are tracking those codes and we can say, okay, at this last office visit, the last 10 have all had this cancer code. That's no longer there. So, therefore, when the insurance carrier or stop loss carrier is evaluating how much they should either bump up the renewal for the employer or not, we can tell them, listen, I know that you see a cancer diagnosis and you think that it's going to cost the employer and you a lot more money next year, but that patient just saw their last infusion treatment or Keytruda, so that's not going to be an ongoing claim issue. We're able to negotiate those types of things. So using our data in an actionable sequence to help leverage and drive the negotiations with the carriers to make sure our clients are protected financially. Um,
Using the data to do productive things? Who's ever heard of such a thing? I thought data was
right.
just there to beef up an infographic or to really fill out a board report. Isn't that what it's there for?
Hey, you said you're the marketing guy, so
No, it's good to
but
use data.
I think some other things are probably be segmenting benefits for different employee populations. Um, I previously spoken about how the food and beverage industry specifically has a lot of younger employees or newly starting their careers, as well as just having a lot of different types of employee classifications. I've referenced before hourly workers being mixed in with management. Are you a tipped employee? Are you not? So segmenting the benefits for different employee populations is definitely something that scales across the industry, no matter what size you are. And also strong onboarding communication,
Mm,
really taking advantage of open enrollments, which whenever I say open enrollment to a friend or family, you I just see them roll their eyes. Nobody tends to like open enrollment meetings, but they're
no.
extremely valuable.
Yeah.
If you can make them entertaining and get the employees to absorb a lot of that information, that strong communication from the get-go can have really long-lasting effects for your employees' happiness. But like everything, every question has been for this, what it comes down to is it can affect your bottom line in a very positive way. So we just try to help the financial burden of employers, and we kind of do that by meeting them at the cross section of the employees also being extremely happy with the benefits being provided to them.
That makes sense. Knowledge is power. And yeah, if you can find
Yes.
a way to make the onboarding meeting exciting, that is a good thing. However you can do that. So sorry.
I might have to dive into making like AI videos of myself and just screening them for the employees at
They're
open
doing some
enrollment.
amazing things with Midjourney these days. You never know. So,
They are.
so Robert, what's one of the biggest challenges facing employers in the industry today?
I think it's one of the biggest issues or hurdles that we're seeing employers grapple with is how they should handle GLP-1s
Hmm.
for their employees. America is the only country in the world that is allowed to advertise for pharmaceuticals. And if you watch TV, I'm sure you've seen a commercial for Wegovy, Manjaro. It's all of the injectables that are within that GLP-1 family. Typically, and how it was rolled out was to help prevent diabetes or diabetes management, and it's since shifted into a weight loss classification. So a lot of my clients are, when we had our renewals going into 2026, they wanted to know, should we exclude this for weight loss? Obviously, we those drugs are very good at what they do for diabetes management, so that would never go away. It's we're And even from the carriers, the health insurance carriers, we're seeing them push employers to exclude GLP-1s for weight loss reasons. And the simple reason for that is it's very expensive. And it's expensive to the employer, it's expensive to the insurance carrier. So a lot of my discussions and strategies for 2026 and 2027 have surrounded, what are we going to do with GLP-1s? Are we going to keep them open to your employees for weight loss? And if we do, we're going to tailor a solution that is not going to make you go bankrupt and get a 30% renewal every single year. And we've found some creative solutions by selecting our vendor partners very carefully in that regard.
Well, that's interesting. It's amazing what they can do with those things these days.
I know it's
Remarkable.
scary in a way.
So as we start to wrap up here, I'd love to know, so like, what's the most unusual question you've been asked in your career as an insurance broker?
Yeah, I certainly get a lot of interesting questions. You would be shocked as to questions regarding compliance. Sometimes you'll just see employers ask, well, why do I need to comply with this? And
Why do I have to comply with the law? What is this?
and I typically that's my reaction. I go like this and I shrug and I say, well, I hear where you're coming from. I'm not the biggest fan of authority and being overly regulated, but if so, say you're not doing this piece of compliance. Well, if you're falling out of compliance in just one area, that opens up the door for the Department of Justice, Department of
Hmm.
Labor to start knocking down your door,
Health
and
department, any
we
number of
like to
things. Yeah.
right. We like to tell our clients, do not give them a single centimeter or reason to be knocking on your door. So
No.
being in full compliance is very important to us, and you would just be shocked as to how many people try to get away with things that they just can't.
I totally believe that. I completely believe that. Like, you should probably just refer that guy right over to the legal department. Like, we're just gonna get ahead of this when we see where this one's going. Just gonna maybe
Yeah,
talk to the lawyers in advance, you know.
sometimes I feel like I'm representing the legal department,
I
and
bet you do.
I'm like, okay, I'll strike that from the minutes being taken in this.
Yeah, well, leave that out of the board report. So, so cool. Well, here, my last question, and again, thank you for coming on the show. But, as we look ahead, what questions should food and beverage leaders be asking right now to better position themselves and their workforce?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially now that we're in 2026 and we're seeing that healthcare inflation is at an all-time high. I think what I would like from forward-thinking business owners within the industry to be asking themselves and asking their brokers is, how do we make benefits a competitive advantage in hiring and retention? How do we improve affordability for employees without blowing up our own budget?
Hmm.
And what does our data tell us about future costs and future risks? As well as what can we implement from a technological standpoint to achieve those goals as well? I'm certainly not an advocate for technology replacing people, but I'm certainly an advocate for technology supporting people. I think there's a lot of great ways that employees and employers can utilize the new rise of AI and help automate their own processes, but also making sure, typically checking with us that they are acting within compliance and just kind of leaning on our expertise. There's too many headaches and frustrations that employers deal with on a day-to-day basis. So we as the broker like to take a lot of that burden off your shoulders and just let us assume the liability, let us assume the risk. We're the experts in that area, and we'll consult on how we should guide you, but we're never going to tell you that you need to do this or you need to do that. Um, I I think just keeping an open mind and wanting to be forward thinking is the best way to go about your benefit decision making in 2026 and beyond.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, to your point about the AI, it's good to have the tool. You don't want to work for the tool though. You want the tool to work for you. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes.
I think I watched Terminator. It doesn't end well. Just maybe we'll
No.
end up in the Matrix. That was a great conversation. My thanks to Robert Stout from Gallagher for joining us and sharing his perspectives on employee benefits, insurance strategy, and the unique challenges facing food and beverage employers. We hope today's discussion helped shed light on how businesses of all sizes can approach benefits with clarity and confidence. Thanks for tuning into Shelf Confidence. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. Until next time, I'm John Zimmerman, and this is Shelf Confidence.